So if there's one thing that I've always taught with my dogs since being pups, other than the recall, is that when we're up here, they've got freedom to do whatever they want. They can run, they can go explore, they can trot off ahead. And I don't tend to speak to them much. I don't want to micromanage them when we're out on a walk. But the one thing that I do often just reward pretty much every single time is trying to teach like an automatic check-in. Like while we're walking, they can do whatever they want. And then occasionally they can just come back, stop, check in. They don't do it all the time, but occasionally they'll go so far and then she just comes back. Don't you, kiddo? Yeah. Good girl. You've only come back because you're fat and you want a bit of sausage. And then once they're here, right, go on. I'll let them go again. That's all I want from them. When we're out here, they can do anything they want. Sniff, run, explore. But just occasionally, we go. They just come back and check in. And it's quite simple. It's quite an easy thing to teach them as well, because eventually the dog, it's going to offer you the behaviour for the most part. Like luckily with mine, they are quite engaged, they are quite involved. So what I would do, what I did with mine when I taught them it as puppies, I had them on a long line, and when they got to the end of the long line, usually like 10 metres, is I'd just sort of stand still with the long line, and they'd just obviously stop, and then they'd look at me. And then I would present them with something that they would want, like usually a treat or a toy. They'd see it, they'd come back. Once they were in position, I would use my my reward marker, yes, so good, and I would hand them the treat or the ball or the toy or whatever it was that they were actually coming back for. And I would do this a few times on the long line so that they understood that when they got so far, that stopping point would happen, and then they'd automatically sort of look at me. And then eventually, once we'd done this, like say like 10 times, like in quick succession, they sort of got the idea of it. So eventually I would drop the long line, they would still go far, and then they would stop, and then they would look at me, and I didn't have hold of the long line, no tension. And then they thought, right, well, maybe I'll go back and see what it is. So eventually I stopped asking, and then they just came back and they just did it. And then eventually we took away the long line, and then every single time we did it, I had to sort of capture the moment as to when they did it. So I just left them to it, and eventually they'd stop and look at me without a line. And at that point I would sort of go, yes, good girl, or whatever. And then they'd come back and they'd get it there. And eventually I would stop saying yes when they looked at me over there in the distance, and then I'd wait for them to make the decision to come back. Goobers. Bloody flies. Right, go on, off you go. So yeah, eventually we took away the long line, and then we waited for that decision-making process to come in to go, we've done this before, I'll go back. And eventually they started doing it. So it is one of the things that I do sort of reward every single time that it happens. Sometimes I won't give them the reward every single time. I'll just give them a quick fuss and then release them on the way, which is like the next most important part of the thing, is that when they're in position and they're near you, is that you say, right, go on, get on, okay, let them go, and things like that, because it lets them know that they can come back, walk with you, and then you send them on the way. It's super. It's like, to me, that's like fairly important. So checking in is one of the most important parts. Like I say, I don't food reward it every single time. Sometimes it'll be a fuss, and then I'll just let them go. I'll send them on the way, kind of thing. But it is one of the things, like, because it eliminates the need for micromanaging. It eliminates the need for recalling them all the time. It eliminates the need for overusing the whistle if you can get your dogs to sort of automatically check in. So that's one thing we did. Like I say, we've had Odin since he were a pup, and then when we got Zebby over there from the rescue centre, she was straight out the long line. Exactly the same thing, same process, and she's a lot better than he is with it now, because is a Labrador and he's done this since a puppy, he doesn't really go far anyway. And if he sees something, he will sit. Whereas she were a bit more of a wild card, and she still can be. And people aren't as welcoming of shepherds going near them all the time. So I'm a lot stricter with her in the training to keep her on point. Aren't we, kid? Unfortunately, but yeah. She's always close by, but we're a lot tighter with her training and rewards just to make sure that she's always under control. So yeah, automatic check-ins, just get them done. They're one of the most pleasant things that you can do for your walk, because it just means that they're always checking in and you don't have to worry. So yeah, that's other than a recall, it's definitely like one of my number ones to train your dog.